We're going to go ahead and get our meeting started. Thank you for joining us. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for joining us this evening. At this time, do we need any translation? Nope. Okay. I will accept a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes any opposed? Sorry. Motion passes 5-0. We're going to get right into it with our student rep reports.
Okay, so last week was homecoming week. It was so fun. It was a success. I want to give thank you to our leadership team. We worked so hard to get homecoming week together, and we knew it was a success because the past few years we haven't been selling homecoming t-shirts, and this year we only had 7 left to sell. And everybody, every student, every hallway that you walked into at OHS, everybody's dressed up. And our goal was to make it that, like, we had that if you didn't dress up, then that was embarrassing. So we kind of, like, made that, like, a thing. And I think we definitely met that goal. I loved seeing admin everywhere at every event, at the Powder Puff, at the homecoming dance too. And they were everywhere. I love that. And I think it goes noticed because every student has been talking about it, how they see them everywhere. And I think we really appreciate that. So on Thursday, we have our career showcase all school day. And then we also have ACT testing tomorrow, all day too. And then I just want to give thank you to Miles for advocating for the seniors, for allowing us to vote to choose on our robe colors. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you so much. We're going to move into our board member discussion. If anyone has anything to add to our student representative report, now would be a great time to do that. Do you have something you want to say?
So 7 t-shirts left. That's like one for each of us, right? That's enough for that.
Right, yeah.
I got to go to a couple of the activities, the game and the Powder Puff and the Husky Olympics. It seemed like it was a success for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question, Pete. I don't know if this one goes to you or maybe to Josh. There was that grant that we won, or that we are. Some of the questions that I'm getting from people around the city, or I think I had brought it up last year, was they're having a hard time with Mondays and that morning period of not having anybody to leave their child with, and we're getting into the time where, they're not going. It's going to be more of a going into factories where they are more set on time and everything else. I was wondering, is that program, would there be any time of that program available in the mornings to be able to drop off kids at school to cover some, maybe to make that hardship just a little bit easier?
Yeah, so we actually wrote the grant to include a Monday morning part of the program. So it's officially listed as a before and after school programming. So we intentionally put Mondays as our day that we're doing the before school programming. So at all the elementaries in McFarland, they will have a program on Monday mornings. It'll work the same way, and so parents will need to register their kid. And it's not just a drop in, like today I'm dropping them off. It would be something that they would be expected to go to over the course of the year. But yes, there is a before school on Monday opportunity. So
great, thank you. We're going to turn it over to Director Gerber for our legislative report.
So just a couple things. The WASDA elections are happening right now. Each of you should have an email that takes you to the portal so you can vote in those elections. And then they're also working on the WASDA legislative priorities right now. So I'm going to email you the list of priorities, and then we get to kind of go through and rank which ones are most important to us, to tell WASDA which ones we'd like them to focus on. So I'll send you that in the next few days. I think it's due at the end of the week. And the government is still shut down, so nothing's happening over there. And that's it.
Great, thank you. We have our board site visit at the high school on October 20th, and we start at 7:30 a.m. Where should we go?
Yeah, we'll be meeting in the library, I'm sure. That's
Okay.
a space that would accommodate us, so we'll start there.
Okay, perfect. So meet at the library at 7:30 on Monday.
Director Prowse, if I could address a question that came from Director Pruneda last time we met.
Please do.
In a board member discussion. And then also Director Gerber's recent comment about the government shutdown. You asked a question, Izaro, about the number of staff we had in sort of that early childhood expertise as far as a certification might go. And it's less than 10%. So if you had, let's say we had around 50 teachers, K-3, less than 5 would be certificated in that way. I was talking with our principals earlier about some rationale behind that. I think one thing to consider when you're going to college and getting certification and trying to be marketable, the more broad you can make your certification, the more likely you are to land a job. So just because someone might be certified K-8 doesn't mean they don't have K-2 expertise or a passion for that work. They just might have gone through a program to make them eligible for more positions if they needed it.
Pete, after that info, would there be any way to maybe help? Maybe I don't know if it would be help or offer an opportunity for the teachers that are in that space to allow or help get that certification?
To incentivize continuing education for that?
Yes.
Yeah, there are certainly options available through some of our state and federal partners and some of the universities and colleges in our area, particularly for ELL services. Typically, those kinds of supports that districts would provide that are funded by an entity other than the district are in really high need areas. We need multilingual teachers. For a time, we needed secondary math and secondary science and those kinds of things. I'm not aware of any funding, but it's something we can look at and see if there is a funding source available for that.
I'd appreciate that.
Yeah. The next one is about the federal shutdown, and this just came out today, so I think is my mic working okay?
Yeah.
It's just my ears then. I apologize. Federal government shutdown did give the president some leeway in how he can make determinations about staffing levels in particular. There have already been some cuts at the Department of Education at the federal level. There were some more that came out in the last 24 hours. So in particular, the special ed services at the federal level, almost 500 employees were let go. What does that mean? Reichdahl put out a statement this afternoon. It probably doesn't mean a whole lot this year or right now around funding. The money's already there. It's going to continue to come. What it will mean is some grant things might get more difficult. We're working on a grant right now that Dr. Meek's been working on for about a week. We're not sure we're even going to get to apply because the people that would give us permission to apply aren't at work. So there are some things about access and support that are going to be a struggle. Compliance at the state and federal level, certainly with fewer people, fewer watching over what's happening with the work. That's not going to go away in Washington. My sense is we're one of the leaders in the country around that stuff, so that's going to continue. But we should expect some gaps in services until that all gets figured out. Now, it's only tied to the shutdown because that's when the cuts were made. When the shutdown's over, the cuts are still going to be in place, is my understanding for this program. It's a different model. We're going to push the money out to the states and let them get after it. So what we heard from Reichdahl today was pretty consistent with what we've been hearing with him the last 6 months, which is we're chasing some of these things down in court. We're going to join other states in doing that. We're not going to change what we're doing in Washington. He can say all that, but it does mean there might be some differences locally when you're trying to get support and trying to get resources and trying to get someone on the phone. So I wanted you to be aware of that. I know it's getting a lot of media attention, and if folks are asking you what's it mean for us, right now we're just not sure.
So Pete, when the shutdown, let's just say the shutdown were to end tomorrow, the cuts would still be in place then?
Yeah, these cuts in particular, the cuts to the federal government, and I think his initial sort of vision for the Department of Ed and his selection of Linda McMahon to lead that group was to get rid of the program, right, to eliminate the entire department. And we're at a moment now where he has some more flexibility. He can move with more efficiency and more urgency. So this isn't because of the shutdown. He said it months and months ago. The shutdown just allowed him to accelerate that move. So I don't expect those folks to come back.
So what happens to the money? Then it would go straight to the states?
My understanding is the money will come in, but that's one thing we don't know. There are all sorts of rules around how they give out the money and then compliance to make sure you're doing what they have approved for those funds. I think that's the big question. How's it all going to work?
So basically you're telling me Washington ain't getting no money.
Telling you what?
Washington isn't going to get any money then.
I think that when the federal government is giving out funds and they have expectations of how those funds should be used and they're within the guidelines of the law, so far Washington has figured out how to do that. And I hope they continue to, because in Washington, I think the cap is 16% of your students can be identified as in need of special services. And those families, and we're talking about families who need support because they're going to work and their kid has to be home alone for an hour and a half on Monday. We have lots of families whose students have needs that require expertise and extra equipment and extra support, and it's going to be a lifetime of their child living in a home with them. Some of our most fragile and vulnerable students and families, we have to look out for them. And so I'm hopeful that that the state will continue to advocate and we receive the funds, and then we'll just give it our best effort here when they come in. Those are my two items. Thank you for letting me share that.
Okay, thank you.
Pete.
We will move on to required approvals. At this time, I will accept a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the required approvals.
I will second that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. At this time, I will accept a motion to approve accounts payable warrants 2.
I'll make the motion to approve accounts payable warrants 2.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1 with 1 abstention. I think I said that wrong. Sorry, but you know what I mean.
Very well.
Is that okay?
Yeah, we're okay.
Now we're going to shoot it over to our superintendent for superintendent and informational items.
Yeah, 2 items this evening. I'm going to start with a policy one first. Policy approval comes up at each meeting. This will be on our agenda for our meeting on the 27th. But we did want you to be aware of it. Once in a while, we'll call some of these out, in particular around high school graduation and the blending of OHS and DOHS. So again, you have a couple of weeks to ponder it and consider it, but we wanted you to be aware of some of the changes and adjustments we had to make to honor the commitments we made to those students who were transitioning from DOHS to the high school. The primary benefit is for those students while we work through this transition for kids who might have been freshmen, sophomores, or juniors at DOHS. I think a good way to frame it, if you've had a college experience, is that you started at your college with certain graduation requirements. Then the college changed those requirements. They allow you to complete your course of study. It's essentially what we're advocating for here. Let the students complete their course of study. But we do want you to take a look at it and be aware of it. Okay? The next item in the primary one for tonight is about work that's certainly going to ramp up starting today over the next several months, and that's around school finance and in particular the levy initially. And so it's a project that Dr. Meek and I have been working on. He and Amy Suarez have been taking the lead in doing some of the prep work. We want to share with you that timeline, take some questions and recommendations for you, and let you know what your responsibility will be here in a few short weeks to launch that work. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Meek.
Thank you. So we're revisiting this topic again. It feels like we were just talking about it not too long ago, but we are at that time and have landed on a place where we think we have a pretty good plan going into what the next several months, but longer term, maybe even several years, can look like in putting some pieces together. So we've tagged all this our Future Ready Schools team. And one of the things that was really clear in our conversation that we had was that we have all these different factors kind of playing in between a levy and a bond and a capital levy and the cycles of when they are. And so our proposal that you'll see with this is to really think of that as a connected effort, so we're not having all these different groups going in different directions, but instead have a united front around that. So the idea would be to establish this Future Ready Schools, a team of people that are composed of stakeholders that have some diverse perspectives across the community. We know that if we get all of our staff in a room or a group of staff, we'll see things a little bit differently than what the community as a large group might see. And so there's some perspective there. Really to give us input and guide our district efforts towards building what we need to do in relationship to levies and bonds and capital levies around the corner. Those people that would be a part of that would be parents and family members, community members and partners. Obviously, there would be some school staff and school district leadership, and then some representative from the board as well, with the idea of that being kind of a guiding coalition that would lead the work over a course of time.
Can we go back to that slide, Dr. Meek? Because I think I want to be sure that what we're asking the board to consider and think about, something that would be really helpful here. It's not unlike these site visits where you're reaching out to constituents and folks that are interested in the work and want to support what's happening in the schools. If you can think of folks that would be good members of this group of thinkers, we would appreciate those names from you. If you have folks that you're out there connecting with and talking to, and we just don't know them, certainly reach out to me or Dr. Meek or Marisa, and we'll make sure to get them connected in the appropriate way and gauge their interest.
Yeah, thank you. This visual is intentionally a little bit messy because it's trying to put those pieces together we talk about. So, in our, really since our board retreat back in June and even before then, we have these three big concepts out there between a levy that we know is right in front of us, a capital levy that may come in the near future, and a bond down the road. And when really we're talking about this window between now and 2029, if you remember to our study of that, there's one bond drops off in 2027, but we're not eligible for state match until 2029. So the timing of those pieces all work together. And if we run a levy, as you know, in 2026, we would be due for another levy in 2029 as well. So that word levy could almost go up on there twice if we wanted to, but we don't need to make it that confusing. And so really the idea is that we blend that work together so we have a coherent plan that leads from levy today to perhaps a capital bond, if that's where the board decides to go and the recommendation comes, and then to a capital levy, and then to a bond. The levy is actually, of those pieces, is the most straightforward one to get started with because it's got some real tangibles behind it. People know in our community what it funds, but that one sits right in front of us now. Really over the course, if you thought about it as I hate to say this because most people won't volunteer to be part of a team that's going to have a 5-year commitment, but it really would be potentially over the next 4 or 5 years seeing those projects through, or at least the planning efforts to go from where we are today into the future. And ultimately putting a plan into action. What we're due for, which is kind of the messy middle in there, is that we're due for an update to our long-range facility plan. It's been some time since it's been updated now based on previous bond preparation projects. And as a few months ago, Greg Foltz was here and I think shared with you that we've started that study and survey process. That's the first step in kind of putting those pieces together. So ultimately what we'd end that work with is both recommendations and plans, but also potentially even those bond initiatives or capital levy initiatives in front of our voting community when the time is appropriate. Obviously, you know that funding in the state of Washington always seems to be up for conversation and discussion, and so the last time the state legislature did something with funding, it was all related to levies. And so there's probably some unknowns in that time frame for us that we're not exactly sure what's going to really happen. Questions about this? Go ahead.
Yeah, a couple questions for the board, and then a question for Dr. Meek. That when you look at this slide right here, and some people won't think that this is the answer to this question because they have a different view of it, but which of those is not a new tax? If you're explaining to a voter, hey, you've already been paying this, do you know which one that is?
The first one, right?
The levy. Yeah, we're already paying a levy, right? And sometimes voters will say, well, it is a new tax because that levy's done, and now you're asking me to do it again. But so if you think of it as a flat bill, it's just continuing that. Can anybody remember why we think a capital levy might make sense for a couple of years?
The bond amount that you pay, and I could be totally wrong, starts to lessen as it gets closer to being paid off. So a capital levy would essentially keep it the same so that when we go for our bond, it wouldn't be such a huge jump. Because if it falls off between, like our levy is like this, and if our bond starts to really drop off when we go for a full bond, then it's a big ask to the community. But if you mitigate that with the capital levy from our previous bond bill to our next bond bill, it kind of bridges that gap, unless I'm wrong.
No, I think that's a great way to think about it.
Okay.
That's exactly right. So again, communicating these phrases and terms to people and decisions that the board's making is going to be really important. There are also some experts in our state that are helping us with this project, and Dr. Meek is particularly connected with a few of them. Are they going to be present at the site visit? Are they going to be able to make that happen? And want to talk about WASDA a little bit?
Yeah. So Phil Crocker will be there. I think some of you may have met him before. Phil's expertise is really around the community planning, kind of planning out the different projects and how they come together. He's not a construction guy. He's really a school guy that helps districts think about, how do you build a plan that takes, everything we talk about and puts it into action to move forward. And so he will be, I invited him to join us. I'm bringing somebody on the Monday site visit to OHS because I figure the high school is a topic of a lot of conversation anyway, so he might as well spend some time in there. So he'll be with us that Monday. And then at WASDA, the second part of that group, we work with a construction management firm. They used to be called Heery. Now they're Heery Turner Townsend. I think they spliced together a bunch of names. But there's an invitation for the board to come to a meeting social event with them at WASDA this November, just to really interact with some of the people. They focus much more on the actual building the projects, and so those two guys together, basically, or their two firms together, really help us go from here's what we're thinking, how do we put it into a plan, and then how does it fit and become a budget, and how do we afford it, and how do we put together a tax package, and all of those other things. And the construction management really lives heavily with, they become the district's representative with the contractor, and so that they are the person really holding the contractor's feet to the line with making sure the projects are built both to the specs but within the budget as well. So.
Yeah, so there'll be a good chance to connect with some folks who are going to help us think through all of this. The last question about the bond would be, and I won't frame it in the form of a question this time, but we typically say state match. And they've encouraged us to move to a different term, which is the School Construction Assistance Program, so SCAP funding. And I think the reason they want us to go that direction is when I say, hey, I'm going to match you, what does that mean if we're throwing money in a pot?
Dollar for dollar?
Dollar for dollar, right? I'm putting in, Othello Community is going to put in $25 million, and the state of Washington is going to be put in $25 million. That's not always accurate, and in our case, it probably won't be. So if we get school construction assistance funding at the $30 million level, and we throw in $60 million locally, I think we just have to be careful about the term match. It made a lot of sense to me. So as we move forward and think about that whole project, these guys will be able to come in and really help us think through how do we communicate what will be, at that point, a new tax for a new building.
And particularly related to Othello High School, what Pete's talking about, that's going to be a real talking point for us is, as you know, the Othello High School campus is a very integrated quilt of all these different buildings at different times. They weren't all built at the same time. And that SCAP fund, the construction assistance, is all a time-bound thing. So the reality is, part of Othello High School is going to become eligible for state construction assistance, and then there's other little corners that are not. that doesn't really work all that well unless you understand we're working with the construction assistance rather than the match for match dollars. So yeah, and David Bodine was the second person. He is definitely a state construction assistance. That's his area of expertise, and so I hope through WASDA you get a chance to interact with him and ask some of those hard questions, because it is confusing. Just bottom line.
Can I ask a clarifying question really quick?
Mm-hmm.
Did I mishear, or is somebody coming to our site visit at the high school on Monday?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a really great opportunity for us to bring people is to that site visit.
Yeah, just like our initial rollout with the operations visit, when we were encouraging the board to bring members, same kind of activity here. We'd love for each of you to bring someone. And we had an opportunity, Dr. Meek, to invite Phil, who's been to our district and spent some time in our schools and helping us think through this next iteration. So yeah, it'd be great if you all could have someone there to be part of these small groups, and maybe they turn into key communicators or members of the Future Ready team for sure.
Okay.
Yep.
I also want to clarify those 3 white bars across the top do not align with the dates that are below there. They're round about the same amount of time. So Lindsay, the 2 dates that I would add to your explanation was great. Our levy drops off in 2027. Our bond, I'm sorry, I just did it. Our bond drops off in 2027. We could turn around and run another bond, but we're not eligible for any state construction assistance dollars until 2029. And so that gap that you talk about, that's what a capital levy may, if we all get there, may be a place of kind of keeping some of those tax rates more consistent without dropping it, and getting some smaller projects done in the process. A good example that we've talked about a lot, as you know, if you're around, is that we have some unique needs that you saw at the last site visit in the food service area. Maybe that's something that becomes a capital levy project that we say that's what we're going to do with that and get that done in that 2027 to 2029 window. So please don't try to put those with those. It's just, that's kind of everything that's sitting in front of us. So we have sent out some initial invitations to some of especially the district staff and a couple of you. Again, would love to have some more folks join us. This is one of those places where we'd love to have people be part of the solution rather than being part of the problem. So if there are voices out there that you'd love to help get them informed and hear it and be involved with it from the beginning, this is get me their names, and we'll happy to reach out to them and get them invited. Our first meeting is coming up here in a couple of weeks. Where that means for you related to the levy is that that team's going to work relatively quickly, but have a couple of meetings in there, and we'll come back to you with a full levy recommendation. We've already done this summer, if you remember, we did some of that preliminary levy work. We feel that if we're going to pull a team of people together, we need to hear their voices too. So we don't want to just bring them together and say, hey, this is what we're doing, but we want to hear from them. But because it's really only, if you remember, we're really only talking about what tax rate are we thinking and how long of a levy. Those are the 2 big decision makers to make. They will bring a recommendation to you all for action, either at the November 24th or December 8th meeting, based on how you want to handle it. We have to turn it into the county by the 12th to be for that February election. On February 10th is election day. So that's kind of how the immediate pieces come together, and for the first task for that Future Ready Schools team. And again, I can't stress enough, if you know of people or you think of somebody that would be a good thinker, we'd love to invite them to come, have them join us. Phil especially will be not in October at this first meeting, but as the plan goes on, he will be kind of co-leading that with us, and that's one of the things that he does. And so as we get into a phase of talking about, what does a long-range plan look like for us, then we get to have a blend of kind of the internal community knowledge and at the same time some external expertise to blend that together. So we leave with a plan that is deliverable. That's the biggest thing, is we don't want to come up with something that looks really good on paper, but it's nothing that we can ever build. So questions about any of that? I could play Justin Johnson and say, I will stop when I hear 2 questions. But I won't.
Yeah, thank you for that. Maybe one final comment, and I think it's for all of us to pay close attention to the early November election, particularly the city, I believe it's a bond for the pool, and the levy lift for the fire department. And whatever happens with those votes, paying attention to that and hearing from voters who are considering those taxes, and it will help inform, I think, our thinking around it. So just want to make sure we're all paying attention to that and coordinating our work as we move forward. Thank you for that. Thank you, Dr. Meek.
Thank you for that presentation. We're going to move on to public comment. Do we have any public comment tonight?
None.
Okay. Upcoming events. We've got the Career Showcase, and that's on the 16th. And then on the 20th is our site visit that we've been talking about, and then our next regular scheduled board meeting, which is October 27th. Does anyone have anything to add to that? What?
We're wondering who's planning to attend the showcase, and
I was, but I'm actually not going to be able to be there.
Let me check my calendar really quick.
I will be there.
I'll be there.
I'll be there at some point as well. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to the board self-assessment of the meeting.
put it on the screen.
Well-planned agenda. It's kind of nice on our very first cold weather, getting dark early meeting that it's not a super late one. Josh, appreciate your presentation and all the work that you've been putting in, getting us ready for this levy, and all of the work that you've been putting into that for months and months. Thank you so much. And for keeping us in the loop all along the way. It really makes it easier for us to explain to people what we have coming and the vocabulary around it and just the depth of knowledge. So thank you.
I'd like to thank Pete for getting me an answer for those questions, even though they were about a month and a half ago. I appreciate that.
Shorter meeting. Ken could probably make it back to the city council meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
planning to do that.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you for the federal update. Just that was something that was on my mind as well, like thinking about the cuts for the special education. So thank you for that.
I just want to say thank you to Christine and Will. You guys are always here. I know it's well after hours and everything else, but when you guys come, it goes unnoticed. Just even John back there who's trying to hide at this moment, but we really appreciate when you guys come. I know it's on your own time, and so we really do. Thank you guys.
Okay. If there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.